48 hours remained. The galaxy waited. In the council chamber on Concordia Prime, the debate had raged for 2 days straight. Representatives screamed at each other. Factions formed and dissolved. The unity that had lasted 1,000 years was cracking. Councillor Velmath stood before the assembly, his golden scales dull with exhaustion and fury. We cannot let this insult stand. Our fleet was humiliated by a handful of human ships. If we do not respond with overwhelming force, every species in the galaxy will think they can challenge us. They already are challenging us, Overseer Dalrim replied calmly. Or haven't you noticed? 20 species have filed formal protests about trade restrictions. 15 more are demanding equal representation. The humans didn't create this discontent, Velmath. They just exposed it. Because you've been meeting with that human ambassador, Velmath accused. You're betraying the council. I'm trying to save it, Dalrim shot back. You want to start a war we cannot win? Yes, we have numbers. But the humans proved they have technology, tactics, and most importantly, the will to fight. Can you say the same about our forces? High Arbiter Quindle had been silent throughout the debate, floating above the assembly like a judge. His crystalline form pulsed with inner light as he processed everything he had witnessed. 3,000 years of life had given him wisdom, but also made him cautious about change. Now he spoke, and his voice carried the weight of ages. Councillor Velmath, explain to me why the humans are wrong. Velmath blinked in surprise. High Arbiter? They defied our authority, threatened our worlds, and humiliated our fleet. Yes, but why are they wrong? What crime have they actually committed? They expanded too quickly. They refused our terms. They succeeded, Quindal interrupted. They colonized worlds that were unclaimed. They advanced their technology through their own efforts. They built a civilization that thrives, and when we tried to limit them, they refused. Is success now a crime? The chamber fell silent. The truth, Quindal continued, is that we are afraid. We elder species have held power for so long that we cannot imagine losing it. When humans achieved in decades what took us centuries, we felt threatened. So we tried to chain them, and now we face the consequences. But the balance, another counselor began. What balance? Quindal's voice was sharp. A balance where the same species always have power? Where younger races are forever subordinate? That is not balance. That is stagnation. And I'm old enough to know what happens to systems that refuse to change. They die. At that moment, every screen in the chamber activated. Ambassador Heian Song's face appeared, but she was not alone. Behind her stood representatives from 47 species, many of them faces the council recognized. High Arbiter Counselors, Heian began. We interrupt this session to present a joint declaration. The species represented here, which constitute approximately 12% of council membership, formally submit a proposal for the reformation of galactic governance. She brought up a document that appeared on every display. We call this the Concordia Accords. It establishes equal representation for all species regardless of age of membership. It opens all markets to fair competition. It applies military limitations uniformly. And it creates an independent arbitration system for disputes. Velmath stared in disbelief. This is treason. This is democracy, Dalrim replied. He stepped forward to stand with the broadcast. I formally endorse the Concordia Accords and call for an immediate council vote. The debate that followed was fierce. The elder species saw their power slipping away. The younger species saw opportunity. And the middle-tier species, those who had been neither fully privileged nor completely suppressed, had to choose sides. As the argument raged, Admiral Shin sat in his command chair aboard the Indomitable, watching the countdown timer. 24 hours until humanity's deadline expired. His hand rested on a secure tablet that would activate the Prometheus protocol if needed. Admiral, his communications officer said quietly, we're detecting massive power surges in council space. Multiple fleets are mobilizing. Velmath isn't giving up, Admiral Shin muttered. Captain, prepare all forces for full defensive operations. If they're coming, we'll be ready. But then something unexpected happened. Ships began breaking formation. Not human ships, council ships. Dozens of them, then hundreds, began moving away from the main fleets. They weren't retreating. They were refusing to fight. Sir, we're receiving messages from those ships, the communications officer said, sounding stunned. They're saying they won't participate in an unjust war. They're standing down. On the bridge of the Golden Supremacy, Velmath watched his fleet dissolve before his eyes. Captains refused orders. Crews mutinied. Even his own officers looked at him with doubt. "This is impossible," he whispered. "How did the humans do this?" "They didn't," his second-in-command replied. "We did it to ourselves. We built a system where no one wanted to fight for it because deep down, everyone knew it was wrong." Back in the council chamber, High Arbiter Quindal raised his appendages for silence. "Enough debate. We will vote. The proposal is the Concordia Accords as presented by the Reform Coalition. All in favor?" The chamber's voting system activated. Lights appeared above each seat. Green for yes, red for no, blue for abstention. The display filled slowly at first, then accelerated. When it finished, the results were undeniable. 73% in favor. Velmath stared at the board in disbelief. "No, this cannot be. The council has stood for 10,000 years. And it will stand for 10,000 more," Quindal said. "But it will stand differently. Better. The motion passes. The Concordia Accords are now law." Velmath let out a roar of rage and tried to override the decision, calling for his fleet to attack anyway, but his own crew refused. His officers removed him from command. The Velthari Empire, recognizing the changing tide, recalled him and began the process of selecting new leadership. 3 months later, Ambassador Hyunwoo Park stood before a very different council. The chamber looked the same physically, but the atmosphere had transformed. Representatives sat as equals now, not in a hierarchy of elder and younger species. "Ambassador Park," High Arbiter Quindal began, "the council formally welcomes humanity as a full member with complete voting rights and privileges. We also apologize for attempting to limit your growth and autonomy. The galaxy is better for having humans in it." "Thank you, High Arbiter," Hyunwoo replied with a slight bow. "Humanity accepts this membership and looks forward to working with all species as partners, not subjects or masters." Later, Prime Minister Yoonji Kang addressed both Earth and the galaxy from Geneva. Her speech was broadcast across every human world and to any alien civilization that wanted to listen. "Today marks a new chapter in galactic history," she began. "Humanity did not seek conflict. We sought respect. We did not want to tear down the Council's system. We wanted to make it fair for everyone. And now, together with our allies across the stars, we've begun that work." She paused, looking directly into the camera. "But make no mistake, we earned this peace by being willing to fight for it. We showed the galaxy that submission is not the only option when faced with injustice. Sometimes you have to stand up. Sometimes you have to laugh at threats that rely on fear rather than facts. And sometimes you have to remind everyone that strength comes not from how long you've held power, but from what you're willing to do to keep what matters." On the observation deck of the Defiant Dawn, Captain Jawan Kim and Dr. Mina Choi shared a drink and looked out at Concordia Prime. "Do you think we made the right choice?" Mina asked. "We came so close to war, if things had gone differently." "But they didn't," Jiwan replied. "We bet that the Council's unity was weaker than it looked. We bet that other species would support reform if someone showed it was possible. We bet on courage over comfort. And we won." "We won this time," Jiwan corrected. "But the galaxy's a big place, Mina. There will be other challenges. Other species who think humans are too aggressive, too ambitious, too different. So what do we do?" Jiwan grinned. "Same thing we always do. We adapt, we survive. We stand up for what we believe in. And if someone tries to push us around," she raised her glass, "we laugh in their face and show them why that's a mistake." They clinked glasses as the station rotated below them, carrying representatives from hundreds of worlds, all working together in a system that was finally fair to everyone. Across human space, the colonies continued growing. New settlements were founded. Trade flourished, and always in the background the military remained ready, because humanity had learned an important lesson from this crisis. Peace is precious, but it cannot be taken for granted. Rights must be defended, freedom must be earned, and sometimes the price of both is the willingness to risk everything. Admiral Taiyang Shin stood alone in his office, looking at the now deactivated Prometheus protocol. He had come within hours of using it, of fragmenting the galaxy to save humanity's independence. The fact that he hadn't needed to gave him no comfort. Next time, and there would be a next time, the situation might be different. So he kept the plans. He kept the weapons. He kept humanity ready, because the galaxy had learned something about humans. They could be peaceful. They could be cooperative. They could be diplomatic and reasonable. The galaxy held its breath. Across human space, fleets moved into defensive positions. Every colony activated shields and weapon platforms that most council members didn't know existed. Admiral Taeyang Shin coordinated movements from the command ship Indomitable, watching displays that showed the entire human sphere of influence. "Status report," he ordered. "All colonies secured." His tactical officer responded. "Defensive platforms online. Prometheus weapons ready for deployment. Civilian populations sheltered in prepared bunkers. Fleet positions. Vanguard at designated coordinates. Main battle groups holding at secondary positions. Reserve forces standing by at Earth." Admiral Shin nodded. The strategy was simple. Make any attack so costly that even winning would feel like losing. Every human world was now a fortress. Any council fleet that attacked would face weapons they didn't know existed and tactics they couldn't predict. His communicator buzzed. "Admiral, we have movement from the council. Large fleet gathering at the nexus point." "How large?" 600 ships, sir. Mostly Velthari, but we're detecting vessels from 30 different species." Admiral Shin felt his jaw tighten. 600 ships. His entire vanguard was only 12 vessels. The numbers were absurd. But numbers weren't everything. "Get me Fleet Captain Min Jae-yoon." A moment later, a young woman's face appeared on his screen. Min Jae was only 32, but she had earned her command through brilliance in 3 separate conflicts that officially never happened. Her ship, the Valiant Thunder, was one of humanity's newest designs. "Admiral, Min Jae, take the Vanguard to the nexus point. Show them what 12 determined ships can do against 600 unprepared ones." She smiled. It was not a kind expression. "With pleasure, sir." Meanwhile, at the nexus point, Counselor Velmath stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Golden Supremacy. Around him, hundreds of council vessels assembled in formation. It was an impressive sight, meant to terrify any opponent. "This is excessive," said Overseer Dalrim, who stood beside him. Dalrim was from the Keth species, a race that had joined the council only 3 centuries ago. His people still remembered what it was like to be newcomers, to be looked down upon by the elder races. "Excessive?" Velmath turned to him. "The humans dared to threaten us. They need to be taught respect. They refuse to be slaves. That's different from a threat. Semantics. When we arrive at Earth, they will see this fleet and understand their mistake. We won't need to fire a shot. They'll surrender." Dalrim doubted that, but said nothing. He had seen the recordings of Ambassador Park's speech. Those were not the words or actions of people who would surrender easily. "Fleet contact," a sensor operator called out. 12 ships just entered the system. Human signatures. "They're approaching us directly," Velmath laughed. 12 ships against 600? Have they lost their minds? The human ships moved into formation 3,000 kilometers ahead of the council fleet. They hung there in space, small and fragile compared to the massive armada they faced. Velmath opened a communication channel. "Human vessels, you are outnumbered 50 to 1. Power down your weapons and prepare to be escorted to a detention facility." The response came from Fleet Captain Min Jae-yoon. Her image appeared on every screen in the council fleet. She looked young, calm, and utterly unafraid. "Counselor Velmath, let me explain something about humans. We don't surrender. We don't submit. And we definitely don't back down. If you want Earth, come take it. But understand this. We'll make you pay for every meter of space. Every ship you lose will hurt. Every soldier who dies will be remembered by your people. And when this is over, win or lose, you'll know that you fought humans, and that knowledge will haunt you." "Enough talk," Velmath snarled. "All ships forward. Sweep them aside." The council fleet began to advance. 600 vessels moving in formation, a wall of metal and firepower that had never been challenged in living memory. And then the first mine detonated. It wasn't an explosion. The ship simply vanished. One moment it was there, the next it was gone, teleported somewhere random within 1,000 light years. Then another ship disappeared. "And another? What's happening?" Velmath demanded. "Unknown weapons. They're not mines as we know them. They're some kind of quantum displacement devices. We can't detect them until they activate." 30 ships vanished in the first minute. The fleet halted, confusion spreading through the ranks. Officers shouted conflicting orders. Formations broke apart as ships tried to maneuver around invisible threats. "Maintain formation," Velmath ordered. "Keep advancing." But the damage was done. The fleet's confidence was shaken. And that's when the human fighters struck. They appeared from nowhere, small craft that had been hiding with stealth systems far beyond what the Council knew humanity possessed. They moved like dancers, weaving between the larger Council ships, firing precisely targeted shots. "They're hitting our engines," someone reported. "Not our weapons, not our crew areas. Just propulsion systems." Dalarim understood immediately. The humans were making a statement. "We can kill you, but we're choosing not to." Yet, ships began drifting, powerless. More quantum mines activated. The Council fleet, which had seemed so overwhelming minutes ago, was being systematically disabled by a force 1/50th its size. "Return fire," Velmath screamed. "Destroy them!" But the Council ships were designed for show and patrol, not real combat. Their targeting systems were outdated. Their tactics were from textbooks written centuries ago. The human fighters moved in patterns the Council computers couldn't predict, using maneuvers that ignored traditional combat doctrine. One Council cruiser did manage to land a hit on a human fighter. The small ship exploded in a bright flash, but instead of demoralizing the humans, it seemed to enrage them. Their attacks became more aggressive, more precise. "Sir, we've lost 90 ships," an officer reported to Velmath, "either disabled or displaced. The fleet is in disarray. We need to withdraw and regroup." "Never. We outnumber them. Numbers don't matter if we can't hit them." The officer's voice cracked. "They're toying with us, sir. They could have destroyed us by now. They're making a point." Dalarim watched the battle unfold and felt something he hadn't expected. Shame. The Council had grown soft, comfortable. They had forgotten that there were species in the galaxy who still knew how to fight, who had to fight to survive. Humanity was one of those species. Back at Earth, Ambassador Heian Song sat across from Dalrim in a secure communication channel. She had reached out to him specifically because intelligence reports suggested he was sympathetic to reform. "Overseer Dalrim, thank you for speaking with me." Ambassador Song: "I must tell you that I'm watching a battle where your forces are humiliating our fleet. This seems an odd time for diplomacy." "That's exactly why it's the right time," Heian replied. "We don't want war, Overseer. We want change. The elder species have controlled the Council for too long. They've used their power to suppress younger races, to maintain comfortable monopolies, to resist innovation. You know this is true. Your own people have felt it." Dalrim was silent for a moment. "What are you proposing?" "A reformation. A real council where all voices are equal, where trade is fair, where military power is regulated for everyone, not just newcomers. We have evidence that 47 species are unhappy with the current system. If they stood together, they could outvote the elder races. And if we refuse to join your rebellion, it's not a rebellion. It's evolution. Systems that don't adapt die." Heian leaned forward. "Right now, your fleet is learning that lesson. We're not trying to destroy the Council. We're trying to save it from itself." Back at the nexus point, Velmath finally gave the order to withdraw. The Council fleet retreated in disorder, leaving behind disabled ships and shattered pride. The human vanguard didn't pursue. They had made their point. Fleet Captain Minjay opened a final communication to the retreating fleet. "Tell your Council that this was a demonstration. We used non-lethal tactics because we wanted to. Next time we might not be so generous. You have 48 hours left to accept our terms." As the Council fleet limped away, Admiral Shin received the report aboard the Indomitable. "Minimal damage to our forces. One fighter lost, pilot recovered. Enemy fleet disabled but intact." "Good," Admiral Shin said quietly. "We've shown them we can hurt them. Now we wait to see if they're smart enough to accept the lesson." But in his private quarters, he activated the Prometheus Protocol. It was humanity's ultimate contingency. Collapse the primary jump gates and fragment the galaxy. It would prevent large-scale warfare but also isolate everyone for centuries. He hoped he'd never need to use it. But if the Council forced his hand, he would. Because humanity would rather live alone than die as slaves. Across the galaxy, species watched the battle recordings. Some were horrified. Others were thoughtful. And a few, particularly the younger races who had long chafed under elder species control, began to wonder. If humans could stand up to the Council, maybe they could too. The Council chamber was packed. Every seat held a representative, and the air hummed with anticipation. They had come to witness humanity's submission. to see the upstart species finally learn their place in the galactic order. Economic consortiums had already divided up human trade routes. Mining corporations had claimed rights to mineral-rich human colonies. The Velthari Empire had selected which human ships would be added to their fleet. Everything was prepared. They just needed the humans to say yes. Ambassador Hyunwoo Park walked through the massive doors exactly on time. Captain Jiwon Kim walked beside him, her hand resting casually near her sidearm. Dr. Mina Choi followed, carrying a data pad and looking calm despite the hundreds of alien eyes watching them. High Arbiter Quindal floated above the assembly, his crystalline form glowing with power. Ambassador Park, you have returned. The Council awaits humanity's acceptance of our terms. Hyunwoo walked to the center platform. He looked around at all the assembled species, meeting their eyes. Some looked smug. Others looked uncomfortable. A few looked away. The people of Earth have carefully considered your demands, Hyunwoo began. His voice was steady, clear, and projected throughout the chamber. We consulted with every human colony, every settlement, every ship in space. We discussed the implications of your terms. We analyzed what acceptance would mean for our future. Yes, Velmath interrupted impatiently. Get to the acceptance. We have much to arrange. We also, Hyunwoo continued, ignoring him, researched your histories, all 400 species. We studied your wars, your conflicts, your military capabilities. A few representatives shifted uncomfortably in their seats. And do you know what we found? Hyunwoo's lips twitched. We found that you haven't fought a real war in over 1,000 years. The chamber went quiet, and then Ambassador Park began to laugh. It started as a chuckle, then grew into genuine deep laughter. Captain Jiwon Kim joined in. Dr. Mina Choi covered her mouth, but her shoulders shook with mirth. Within seconds, the entire human delegation was laughing so hard that tears ran down their faces. The council sat in stunned silence. Nothing in their thousands of years of deliberations had prepared them for this moment. Silence, Velmath roared, rising from his seat. How dare you insult this council? Hyunwoo composed himself, wiping his eyes. Forgive us, counselor. It's just, you're trying to intimidate us with threats you can't back up. You're like a child holding a toy sword, demanding a soldier surrender. The High Arbiter's glow intensified with anger. You will show respect, human. Respect? Hyunwoo's expression hardened. You demand we respect you while you try to enslave us? Let me tell you what we found, High Arbiter. The Velthari Empire hasn't mobilized for combat in 800 years. Your ships are museums. Your soldiers are for parades, not battles. He pointed at different sections of the chamber. The Krelix disbanded their marines 4 centuries ago. The Mothai converted warships to cargo haulers. The Telkari don't even have a military. Half of you have forgotten what war looks like. The other half never knew. We have numbers, Velmath snarled. 400 species against your 1. You cannot win. Win? Hyunwoo smiled coldly. Counselor, we don't need to win. We just need to make you bleed. And you've all been comfortable for so long you've forgotten what bleeding feels like. Dr. Mina Choi stepped forward and activated her data pad. Images appeared on every screen in the chamber. They showed various council homeworlds from orbit. Beautiful planets, peaceful cities, busy space stations. These were taken 4 hours ago, she explained calmly. By our stealth satellites. We have eyes on every council homeworld. We've been watching you for weeks. The chamber erupted into chaos. Representatives shouted, demanding explanations. How had humans penetrated their defenses? Why hadn't anyone detected these satellites? Enough! The High Arbiter's voice boomed with psionic power, forcing everyone into silence. He turned his attention to Hyunwoo, and waves of mental pressure rolled off him like heat from a furnace. Images flooded into the ambassador's mind. Earth burning. Human colonies destroyed. Children screaming. Hyunwoo didn't flinch. He had been trained to resist psionic attacks. More importantly, he had something the High Arbiter didn't expect. Absolute certainty in his cause. Those images don't frighten me, Hyunwoo said quietly. Because they're fantasies. You won't burn Earth. You won't destroy our colonies. Because you can't. Not without losing more than you'd gain. You doubt our power. Quindal's voice was dangerous. I doubt your will, Hyunwoo replied. Power without will is just potential, and you've been potential for too long. He gestured to Mina, who brought up new images. These showed human military installations, defensive platforms around colonies, ships that looked nothing like the vessels the Council had seen before. Weapons that made several representatives gasp in recognition. While you were making trade deals and having debates, we were preparing, Hyunwoo explained. We learned from Earth's history. The species that survive aren't the strongest or the smartest. They're the ones who adapt fastest. You gave us 32 years. We used every second. He pulled out a data chip and placed it on the platform. This contains humanity's counterproposal. I suggest you review it carefully. Velmath slithered down from his seat and grabbed the chip. He scanned it quickly, his golden scales darkening with rage. This is insane. You demand that we retract all terms, open markets to equal competition, grant you full voting privileges, and apologize for attempting coercion? We also set a deadline, Captain Jiwon added cheerfully. 72 hours. You're giving us an ultimatum? A representative from the moth-eye species stood, her wings fluttering in agitation. You dare? You gave us one first, Hyunwoo pointed out. We're just returning the favor. Accept our terms or learn what happens when you push humans too far. This is madness, another counselor muttered. They're bluffing. They have to be. Mina activated one more image. This one showed a council patrol fleet near the border of human space. 20 ships, standard formation. This fleet was conducting exercises near our territory 2 days ago. They got too close to one of our listening posts. The image changed, showing the same fleet, but now there were objects attached to their hulls. Small devices, barely visible. Those are markers, Jiwon explained. Not bombs. Not weapons. Just markers. We put them there to prove a point. Your ships were in formation, shields up, sensors active, and we still attached 38 markers without being detected. If we'd wanted to, we could have disabled or destroyed that entire fleet. The implications hit the chamber like a physical blow. If humans could mark ships without being detected, they could plant real weapons just as easily. This is an act of war, Velmath shouted. No, Hyunwoo corrected. An act of war would be if we'd actually used weapons. This was a demonstration. We're showing you that we can reach you whenever we want. Your defenses are outdated. Your sensors are blind to our technology. Your military is unprepared. He looked directly at the High Arbiter. You tried to intimidate us because you thought we were weak. But you judged us by your standards, not ours. You forgot that humans have only been in space for 70 years. We're still in our aggressive expansion phase. We're still hungry. We still remember how to fight. You would start a war that could destroy the galaxy, Quindal said, his voice heavy with warning. No, Hyunwoo replied. You would start it by trying to enslave us. We're just making sure you understand the cost. You can have peace with humanity as equals, or you can have war with us as enemies. But you cannot have submission. That option died the moment you made your demands. He turned to address the entire council. Some of you don't want this fight. I can see it in your faces. You were pressured by the elder species, the ones who've held power for so long they think it's their right. Well, it's not. Rights are earned, not inherited. We've explored the galaxy for 10,000 years while you were living in caves. Velmath spat. And in all that time, what did you build? Captain Jiwon asked. A comfortable empire where everyone knows their place. Where innovation is controlled. Where younger species serve older ones. You didn't build a civilization. You built a hierarchy, and you're angry because we refuse to join it. Hyunwoo picked up his datapad. You have 72 hours to decide. Accept our counterproposal or we'll show you why humanity survived every extinction event, every disaster, every challenge our planet threw at us. We'll show you why we went from caves to starships in 10,000 years, and we'll show you why fear of competition is the first sign of weakness. The human delegation turned and walked toward the doors. Behind them, the council erupted into arguments and shouting. Some demanded immediate military action. Others called for negotiation. A few sat in stunned silence. As they left the station, Mina looked at Hyunwoo. Do you think they'll accept? I think, the ambassador replied, that we've just done something no one has done in 1,000 years. We've made them doubt themselves. And if they attack anyway? Jiwon asked. Hyunwoo was quiet for a moment. Then we make them regret it. Every step of the way. The message reached Earth 12 hours later. What happened next would be remembered in human history as the Day of Unity. Prime Minister Yoon-ji Kang sat in the Emergency Command Center beneath Geneva, watching the recorded transmission from Ambassador Park for the third time. Around the circular table sat representatives from every major human settlement in the galaxy. Some were physically present, Others appeared as holograms transmitted across the vast distances of space. "Play it again," said Do-hyun Lee, his hologram flickering slightly. He represented the outer colonies, particularly New Seoul on Kepler 442b. His settlement had fought off pirate raids, survived alien diseases, and carved civilization from hostile wilderness. His people were tough, and it showed in his scarred face and hard eyes. The High Arbiter's voice filled the room once more, reading the list of demands. When it finished, the silence was heavy. "This is slavery," Do-hyun said flatly. "They want to take our ships, control our worlds, limit our children, and steal our innovations. And they want us to pay them for the privilege. They have 400 species," said a representative from the Mars colonies. "We've been in space for barely 70 years. How can we possibly resist? How can we possibly submit?" Do-hyun shot back. "My people didn't survive hell itself just to become pets for aliens who are afraid of competition." Admiral Taeyang Shin leaned forward. He was a legend in the Space Force, a tactical genius who had designed most of humanity's defensive strategies. His gray hair was cut short, and his uniform was decorated with medals from conflicts that most civilians never knew happened. "Before we decide on defiance or compliance, we need facts," he said calmly. "Director Bay, your report?" Gina Bay stood. She ran Human Intelligence, the organization responsible for understanding alien civilizations and predicting their behaviors. She was small, quiet, and had a mind like a steel trap. "I've analyzed the Council's military capabilities based on all available data," she began, projecting images onto the screens around the table. "On paper, they're overwhelming. 400 species, tens of thousands of ships, billions of soldiers. We would lose any direct military confrontation." Murmurs of concern rippled through the room. "However," Gina continued, and the room quieted, "my team has identified critical weaknesses. The Council hasn't fought a unified war in over 1,000 years. Most member species have reduced their militaries to ceremonial forces. The Velthari Empire, which would lead any action against us, last mobilized its fleet for actual combat 800 years ago. Their ships are maintained, but their crews lack real experience." She brought up more data. "The Krelix disbanded their Marine Corps 4 centuries ago. The Mothai converted their warships into cargo haulers. The Telkari don't even have a military anymore. They outsource their defense to private contractors. So they're soft," Do-hyun said with a grim smile. "They're unprepared," Gina corrected. "That's different from soft. They have the numbers and resources. They lack the will and experience. The question is whether we can exploit that gap." Prime Minister Kang turned to Admiral Shin. "Can we fight them? Not in a straight battle. They'd crush us." He paused. "But war is rarely straight. Gina's assessment is correct. They have overwhelming force but no idea how to use it effectively. We, on the other hand, have spent the last 30 years preparing for exactly this kind of situation." "What do you mean?" asked the Mars representative. Admiral Shin smiled. It was not a pleasant expression. "We've been planning for war since the day we met the Velthari. We learned from Earth's history. Never trust that peace will last. Always be ready." He gestured to someone off-screen. "Young-jae, please explain." A new figure appeared on the displays. Young-jae Ro was the lead engineer of humanity's most classified project. Most people at the table had never seen him before. He looked young, barely 40, with tired eyes and grease stains on his jumpsuit. "For the last 20 years, Young-jae began, we've been developing weapons and systems beyond what the Council knows about. We call it the Prometheus Initiative." He brought up schematics that made several representatives gasp. Quantum displacement drives that can jump a ship without using the standard gates. Singularity missiles that can crack a moon. Adaptive AI systems that learn and counter enemy tactics in real time. Neural link coordination that lets our ships fight as one mind. And more that I can't discuss even in this secure channel. "You've been building weapons in violation of Council restrictions?" The Mars representative looked shocked. "We've been building defenses," Admiral Shin corrected sharply. "The Council imposed those restrictions to keep us weak. We appeared to comply while developing alternatives. It's called survival." Prime Minister Kang stood and everyone's attention turned to her. She was a small woman, barely over 5 feet tall, but her presence filled the room. She had led humanity through first contact, through the difficult integration with galactic society, and through a dozen smaller crises that never made the news. "The question before us is simple," she said. "Do we submit to these demands and become subjects of the Council, or do we refuse and risk everything?" If we submit, we're finished as a free species, Do-hyun said immediately. They'll control us forever. Every generation will live under their rules, their limitations, their fear. If we refuse, we might not survive, the Mars representative countered. We might not, Admiral Shin agreed, but I'd rather die free than live as a slave. And I don't think it will come to that. I think we can win this. How? Prime Minister Kang asked. The Admiral's smile returned. By showing them something they've forgotten? The cost of war. He brought up a tactical display. We can't beat them in a long conflict, but we can make even victory so painful that they'll think twice. And more importantly, we can expose the rot in their system. Gina Bay stepped forward again. My analysis shows that the Council is held together by economic interests and old agreements, not loyalty or shared values. At least 60 species are marginalized by the elder races. They're not happy with the current system, but they lack the power to change it. If humanity stands up to the Council, some of those species might support us, or at least refuse to fight against us. You're gambling that their alliance will fracture, said the Mars. Representative, I'm betting that bullies lose their courage when someone punches back, Do-hyun said. Prime Minister. Kang looked around the table. We need a vote. But before that, I want to be clear about what we're choosing. If we refuse these demands, we're not just risking war. We're betting everything humanity has built. Our colonies, our ships, our future. Are we ready for that? One by one, the representatives spoke. Some voices wavered. Some were strong from the start. But as the discussion continued, a pattern emerged. Humanity had not come to the stars to kneel. They had come to stand tall. When the vote was called, it was unanimous. Prime Minister Kang nodded slowly. Then we're decided. Admiral Shin, begin military preparations. Make it clear that any attack on human territory will be met with total resistance. Young Jae, activate the Prometheus Initiative. I want every advantage we have ready to deploy. And the Council's deadline? Someone asked. Kang's expression hardened. We'll meet it. Ambassador Park will return to Concordia Prime with our response. But not the response they're expecting. Admiral Shin brought up one more display. I propose Operation Laughing Star. Laughing Star? Do-hyun raised an eyebrow. Because, the Admiral explained, when the Council hears our answer, they won't know whether to be terrified or insulted. And that confusion will be our first weapon. The plan was audacious. Some called it insane. But as the details unfolded, grins began to appear on faces around the table. Humanity was going to do what humans did best, surprise everyone, break all the rules, and make it work anyway. 48 hours later, the Defiant Dawn left Earth orbit, heading back toward Concordia Prime. This time, though, it wasn't alone. Following at a careful distance, invisible to standard sensors, a dozen stealth ships took up positions, and across human space, fleets mobilized, weapons activated, and soldiers prepared. The galaxy was about to learn something important about humanity. They could be peaceful. They could be cooperative. They could follow rules and respect traditions, but they would never, ever be slaves. The diplomatic vessel cut through the darkness of space like a silver knife. Inside the bridge, Captain Ji-won Kim stood with her arms crossed, watching the massive space station grow larger on the viewing screen. Concordia Prime was beautiful in a cold, mechanical way. Hundreds of docking rings circled the central sphere, and ships from countless worlds came and went like insects around a hive. We're being hailed, said the communications officer. Ji-won nodded. Put them through. A voice filled the bridge, speaking in the common galactic language that humanity had learned 32 years ago, when the Velthari Empire made first contact. Earth vessel Defiant Dawn, you are cleared for docking at Ring 47. Proceed immediately to the Council chamber. Do not deviate from your flight path. The transmission ended before Ji-won could respond.
She frowned.
Something felt wrong. The tone was too harsh, too commanding. Usually, the Council treated diplomatic arrivals with at least basic courtesy. Ambassador Hyunwoo Park entered the bridge, adjusting his formal diplomatic coat. He was a tall man with gray hair and calm eyes that had seen many difficult negotiations. Behind him walked Dr. Mina Choi, the team's xenobiologist and cultural expert. She carried a datapad and looked nervous. Captain, Hyunwoo said quietly, have they told you why we were summoned? No, sir. The message just said it was urgent. Emergency session, Mina tapped her datapad. I've been reviewing recent Council communications. There's been a lot of chatter about human expansion. Some of the elder species are unhappy. Unhappy? Jiwon raised an eyebrow. We've followed every rule they gave us. Yes, but we've been very successful. Maybe too successful for their comfort. The ship docked smoothly. Jiwon led a security team of 6 as they escorted the ambassador and Dr. Choi through the station's corridors. The walls were made of some crystalline material that shifted colors as they passed. Aliens of every shape and size walked by, some on 2 legs, others on 4 or 6, some floating, some slithering. Humanity was still the newest member of this vast galactic community. They reached the council chamber doors. 2 guards stood there, tall creatures with blue skin and 4 arms. They wore ceremonial armor that looked impressive but impractical. Mina noticed this detail and filed it away in her mind. The doors opened and the human delegation stepped into an enormous circular room. Hundreds of seats rose in tiers around a central platform. Nearly every seat was filled. The ambassador had expected a small emergency session with perhaps a dozen key members. Instead, the entire council had gathered. This was not a discussion. This was a judgment. Ambassador Park of Earth, a booming voice echoed through the chamber, approached the speaker's platform. Hyunwoo walked forward calmly, though his heart was beating fast. He had faced hostile negotiations before, but nothing like this. Mina and Jiwon followed, taking positions slightly behind him. A being of pure energy, barely contained within a crystalline shell, floated above the highest tier. This was High Arbiter Quindal, leader of the council and member of the ancient Ascendant caste. He had lived for over 3,000 years and was one of the most powerful psionics in the galaxy. Humanity has been granted the honor of council membership, Quindal began, yet you repay this honor with aggression and disrespect for the established order. Hyunwoo kept his face neutral. With respect, High Arbiter, humanity has followed every guideline and regulation provided to us. Silence. Another voice cut through the air. A reptilian creature with golden scales rose from his seat. This was Councillor Velmath of the Velthari Empire. You speak only when given permission, human. The High Arbiter raised one glowing appendage and Velmath reluctantly sat down. Humanity's actions speak louder than words. In just 32 standard cycles, your species has colonized 73 worlds. 73. Do you understand what you have done? We have exercised our right to peaceful expansion, Hyunwoo replied carefully. You have disrupted the balance. Velmath shouted, standing again. It took my people 400 years to colonize 50 worlds. The Krelix needed 3 centuries to establish their territory. You humans spread like a plague across the stars. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the chamber. Mina watched the assembled aliens carefully. Many looked uncomfortable, but none spoke in humanity's defense. Your ships are too fast, continued Velmath. Your technology advances at an alarming rate. Your people breed without control. You compete with established trade routes and undercut prices. You are chaos incarnate, and chaos cannot be tolerated. The High Arbiter's glow intensified. The Council has deliberated. We present humanity with terms that are not negotiable. You will comply, or you will face complete isolation from galactic civilization. A holographic display materialized in the center of the chamber, showing a document with hundreds of lines of text. Hyunwoo scanned it quickly, and with each line his blood ran colder. You will surrender 60% of your military vessels to Council control for repurposing, Quindal read aloud. All human colonies will submit to Council oversight and governance. Earth's population growth will be limited to 0.3% annually. All human technological research and development will be shared freely with the Council, without reciprocation, and humanity will pay reparations totaling 5 trillion credits for the crime of disrupting galactic economic harmony. The chamber fell silent. Every alien eye was on the human delegation. Hyunwoo took a deep breath. May I consult with my government before responding? You have 48 standard hours, the High Arbiter said. Return here with your acceptance or prepare for the consequences. As the human delegation turned to leave, Velmath couldn't resist adding, You should have stayed in your little solar system, humans. The galaxy was peaceful before you arrived. Now you will learn your place. They walked through the corridors in silence. Only when they were safely back aboard the Defiant Dawn did anyone speak. They're afraid of us, Mina said softly. Jiwon looked at her. What? Did you see the guards? They stood in ceremonial positions, not tactical ones. And the way Velmath spoke. That wasn't anger at rule-breaking. That was fear of competition. Mina pulled up files on her datapad. I've been studying council history. They haven't fought a real war in over 1,000 years. All their conflicts are economic and political. They've forgotten how to actually fight. That doesn't matter if they have 400 species united against us, Hyunwoo said tiredly. Maybe not all 400, Mina replied. Did you notice how many stayed silent? I counted at least 60 species who never spoke or voted on these terms. Some of them might be sympathetic to us. Jiwon crossed her arms. What are you thinking, Ambassador? Hyunwoo looked at the holographic copy of the council's demands floating above his desk. The words seemed to mock him. Surrender. Submit. Obey. I'm thinking, he said slowly, that we need to send an immediate transmission to Earth. And I'm thinking that humanity has never been very good at following orders we didn't agree to. The ship turned away from Concordia Prime and jumped into faster-than-light travel. Behind them, the council waited, confident in their power and certain of humanity's submission. They would soon learn that confidence and certainty were very different things.